Hello everyone, this is Carmen with Coffee with Carmen. This is another time that I'm alone. Let me get a sip of coffee. It's delicious. Thanks, Brandon, for being here. I want to welcome you all to Coffee with Carmen. I was going to have a guest speaker, but he couldn't make it. So you know what? God says, you're on your own. And actually, I'm not. I'm with him. And so there was a word that he had been talking to me about, and I wanted to film outside because, I grew up in Arizona and I live in the desert, and I never really, I don't know, I didn't think it was beautiful till maybe a couple of years ago. Just as I'm driving north and I see the mountains, I don't live that far away from the mountains, and just seeing the beauty of the mountains and the beauty of the desert and the cactus and all of that. And I wanted to film outside because my backyard is kind of like, it's rocks and lemon tree behind me, and so it kind of looks like the desert. But the one thing that God wanted me to share with all of you is that sometimes in life we feel like we're walking in the desert, and we just kind of see life as it's just dragging on, and we don't see the beauty in the desert. And God was reminding me that He created the desert, and He created everything. He created me, He created you, and as you look behind me, you see this lemon tree. It's where it's kind of green, but yet it has this, dryness to it. And this year, it didn't even bear a lot of lemons. And so I thought to myself, that's how life is with us sometimes. We look at it and it doesn't look as beautiful as someone else's. Or we look on the outside and we think someone else has a better life than we do, but yet God is wanting us to see life for what He's handing to us, even if it's, have rocks. He might. I hope this makes sense, but I just want you to understand that God's beauty is different. Um, what He's doing in your life is different than He might be doing in mine or someone else's. And God is wanting to remind you that what He hands you is what you need. It's sufficient. I wrote down this word sufficient. It means enough. It means adequate. It also means plentiful, which is existing in or yielding. It says great quantities or abundant. So however you want to look at that word, it's kind of like you look at my yard. You can look at the rocks, and there's no life in the rocks. It doesn't grow, but God created the rocks. You look behind me and you see my lemon tree and you see how it's growing. So God's in everything and anything. You just have to be willing to see it. And I call it those precious little nuggets that He gives us, where all of a sudden we realize, like, wow, He is there. And the other thing that I wrote down was the word desert, and it says any large, extremely dry area of land, which is it's sparse in vegetation. And sometimes we look at our life that way. We look at it like there's nothing there. It's sparse. There, what we're hoping for, it's not coming. But you know what? When you really look at the bigger picture, you realize that God is all in it. He's giving you what we need. He's giving you what you need, what I need. And to my right, I don't know if you can see it, but I have like a bush of greenery. Um, and so that's kind of how life is. There's green. The green is the goodness that we see. The rocks is maybe those little things that don't mean anything, but yet God's working through it. And God also was reminding me, because I went back to read about Joshua and Moses again, because I felt like I needed to go back. I felt like I needed to go back because I know God's doing new things this coming year. And I felt like God was wanting me to remember the reason why I'm here. I'm here for you. I'm here for everyone who is seeking God, who is wanting to know God, who is wanting to find their yes. And life changes all the time, but the yes to God is just saying yes to Him, accepting Him. And I know some of you don't know who God is. And I'm hoping that through Coffee with Carmen, if you go back and watch, or in the future, you continue, you start watching, you realize that saying yes to God is just trusting Him and knowing that He's there with you, knowing that, it's a process. I know Dr. Ross said that last week. It's a process. Sometimes, we're all in, and other times we just don't know what's going on. And that's why I started thinking about the desert and what that looks like. And, if you live in Arizona, you get to see the beauty of both. If you go head up north to Flagstaff, you see the beauty of the trees. It's different. So that's how life is. it's always different, but you got to be willing to hold on and trust God. And the scripture that I wanted to bring to you today was when Moses was talking to Joshua, because he knew that his time was coming. He knew that it was going to end because God had been showing him that, and Moses wanted to make sure that Joshua um, will continue to see it the way he saw it from the very beginning, when he looked over and didn't see the giants, he just saw the promise. So Moses was just talking to him and telling him, like, remember that, remember it, hold on to it, and don't let anyone these are my words, but I felt like Moses was just telling him, like, don't let anyone stop you. Continue to see it the way you saw it from the very beginning, and keep going. And I'm telling you, like, just keep going. Focus on the things that on the brighter things. And I know I always go there, but that's the one thing that God's been for me. I always focus on what He has done, what He is doing, because that's how, I don't know. It's just there's a beauty in that, and so I just want to encourage you to see your when you're in your dry place and your desert land, for you to be able to see the beauty in it, because there's always those special nuggets that God's showing you through the process, and but you have to be willing to just maybe sometimes just sit down and just kind of just not kind of, but just embrace God. Open up your word, open up your app, and just kind of just say, God, I don't know you, but I want to get to know you. I want to know who you are. We all go through things, and we all have to come to a point where we just have to, like, just say, God, I don't know, but you do. And that's kind of like when I was looking at the desert, like, it looks dry and it doesn't look beautiful, but it is beautiful. God created it, and He created you, and you are beautiful. You're handsome. You're everything that God created you to be. So don't doubt that. And I did want to read the scriptures, Deuteronomy 31:7, and this is when it says, "Then Moses summoned Joshua and said to him in the presence of all Israel, be strong and courageous, for you must go with this people into the land that the Lord swore to their ancestors to give them, and you must divide it among them as their inheritance." So God is saying, He's saying, I'm calling you out. I'm letting you know that He's made a promise. He's telling you to be strong and courageous. Don't give up. Be strong and courageous. Move forward. And He's saying, because there's promises that He's given you. There's promises that He has for your children and your grandchildren. And He wants you to know that not to give up, whatever it is. No matter how dry it looks, no matter how whatever it is, be willing to just keep going. It's a process. And so I want to encourage you today to remember to, when you feel like giving up, just sit for a moment and look around you and focus on those little nuggets that He's showing you that are right in front of you that can keep you going. Because He doesn't want you to give up. He wants you to see the beauty, just like Joshua did. When he looked over and he saw the promise, he didn't focus on the giants. He saw the promised land. And he still had to walk with the ones who didn't see it and wait. But when his time came, he was willing to continue to see God and to see the promise. And Moses encouraged him not to give up, to be strong and courageous. So I'm encouraging you. Don't give up. Be strong and courageous. Know that your yes to God means something. He looks at you and you are beautiful. He looks at you and you're handsome. He looks at you and says, you are beautiful and wonderfully made. And so I want you to, to look at yourself that way and to know that there's nothing impossible with God. Nothing at all. And the only one that can stop you is yourself. So I encourage you today, as you continue to walk, look beyond the desert and look at those nuggets that He's handing you. And as I always say, don't ever forget, but always remember that there's always hope in Jesus. God bless.